At Cabana, we understand the struggles of working in healthcare. Whether it's loss, coworker challenges, or trouble balancing work and home, we're here. And so are 85,000 peers from hospitals and health systems all across the country. Connect with others who have been there. Join our live, daily group classes for support and growth. Because finding someone who gets what you're going through shouldn't be its own struggle. Learn more at www.mycabana.health.
Welcome back to You're Always Fine, a space to show up for yourself and embrace the mess that lives underneath because, let's be real, it's exhausting always being fine. So grab your headphones and allow yourself to listen, laugh, and even cry because you are not alone and we aren't always fine. And that's okay.
We are back with another episode of You're Always Fine. I'm your host, Christine.
And I'm Lauren.
Today, we may ruffle a few feathers because we are calling out one of the biggest misconceptions of mental health, self-care. This conversation is way overdue, if you ask me. So let's cut the small talk and get right into it. Ready, Lauren?
Roger that.
Let's get started with the American Psychological Association's definition of self-care. Lauren, I sent that over to you. Can you read it for us?
So the APA defines self-care as, quote, providing adequate attention to one's own physical and psychological wellness, end quote. All right. Well, so after reading that, self-care seems pretty broad. Yeah. Like, okay, that could be anything, right? But for me, if I'm reflecting inwards, I have defined self-care as getting me centered in order to be the best version of myself and meet humanity with my humanity.
Wow. I felt like that was very deep. Maybe I'm the only one who didn't know this, but I recently in my own therapy learned that there's 8 areas of self-care. And maybe
8?
I'm just alone because I'm over here just trying to get one self-care done, but apparently there's 8. And those areas are physical, emotional, environmental, spiritual, cognitive, intellectual, and relational. Did you know that there were 8 domains to worry about?
No. I knew some of these just from teaching in Cabana. Honestly, I learned more than just 1 or 2 that I thought were self-care because of the content that you put together. But I am not aware of environmental. What is that? What is environmental self-care?
Okay, so this one definitely threw me because I was like, what do they want me to recycle? How's that? I just went all over the place with it, but it actually does make a lot more sense. So environmental self-care is about the spaces you occupy. So for instance, your workspace or your nightstand. It's about making sure those spaces and how you interact with those spaces work for your needs or what works for you essentially. So, I think that even applies to digitally, so much is done digitally, taking time to organize your desktop and stuff. So that's how they defined environmental, which makes a heck of a lot more sense in my opinion than my definition.
Yeah, it's less daunting than are you recycling enough today? I'm probably not.
Self-care has long been a buzzword associated with mental health and wellness. It often is the go-to response when someone expresses discontentment. Think about it. How many times have you felt stressed, tapped out, and you've told someone and you get the well, you have to pour into your own cup or you need to take time for yourself. Seriously, it really is the most prescriptive thing I think that people say. And the rise of self-care really started to go viral with, I think, social media and that whole wellness boom that we saw, during COVID in recent years. And I think in theory, that's great. We all need people talking more about mental health and prioritizing themselves and normalizing the struggle in general. But I'm just going to go on and say it. We have lost our way when it comes to self-care. And I think we've entered a dangerous delusion.
I can definitely see that. I mean, it seems like literally and figuratively, we've almost capitalized on self-care. It's been made this business. But I just want to clarify. So are you saying that the value is lost on this recent boom? Because I would think something has to be better than nothing though, right? If you're doing any self-care, it's better than no self-care.
Okay, so to that point, yes, I would agree with that. But what I'm kind of found and where this is coming from for me is that a lot of the activities that we're considering self-care aren't self-care activities, right? Like shopping, getting your nails done, vacationing, spa days. It's that treat yourself culture that I'm kind of speaking to, but we're doing it under the guise of self-care. And again, I agree with your last point. However, that's not really a self-care practice. Those are self-indulgent behaviors. And most of the time, they're avoidant behaviors. And we use them for, immediate pleasure or relief from whatever we're dealing with.
That makes sense. Okay, so yeah, I've never really thought to separate those two because I thought they would just all fall under the umbrella of self-care. Because I can see how, like in the past, when I have treated myself to some retail therapy or a spa day, like I did feel better. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting like a deep tissue massage, and I love that, but I guess in reflection, yeah, like it was short lived because as soon as that indulgence was over, like I still had the BS waiting for me. So I guess to further clarify, so if we're separating them, how would you know to tell the difference between a self-indulgent behavior or when it's being self-indulgent versus when it's a self-care behavior?
So first off, I want to say that I am not saying at all there is anything wrong with self-indulgent behaviors in balance. However, the key thing here is we're calling it self-care, and self-care is so much more than that. Because self-care involves like the intentional actions and practices that promote overall well-being. And it's what like nurtures our physical, mental, and emotional health. On the other hand, those self-indulgent behaviors often are impulsive and excessive, and they provide only temporary pleasure. But in the long run, they're either stalling what you have to address, or they can become harmful.
Yeah, Christine, I'm still having a hard time seeing how my massage is going to be harmful. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I see where you're going. So perhaps instead of maybe running to a masseuse every time I feel tense, maybe massaging my mental to determine the areas of my life that might be neglected. I could see that. I need to tweak some things for sure. That's interesting. Well, so, and then I guess if I'm getting away from the massage example, like applying your definition for me of self-care would look like getting my gym time in, journaling, making sure I'm spending time with loved ones, like that socialization, setting and maintaining boundaries. Like I've learned a lot about that this year, and that's like on the forefront of my self-care routine. It's a daily flex, I'm not gonna lie. But this definitely is in contrast now that I'm seeing it in a different light. It's in contrast with those self-indulgent behaviors, like using those frequently and not really getting to maybe the root of what I actually need to find my balance. Is that kind of where you're going with it?
Exactly, right? If you think about it, the massage, if intentionally done and done for a way to maybe open up a space where you can feel like you can journal, that's a different intention than not setting up, like running to the masseuse to just get rid of the day's stress because you feel better and you can go home and cook dinner after that. Self-indulgent behaviors, they provide immediate gratification, but that satisfaction is only short-lived. While genuine self-care practices, most of the time you're not going to have an instant pleasure related with them. However, what you're contributing to is like your long-term well-being. And that's not always like sexy or fun.
Yeah, no, I know. Because again, it's just like, okay, so I just had a thought that came to me before, like I want to like get that out of my brain first before I lose it. So like yeah, it brings that immediate gratification. And self-care, like for me, I'm like self-care, I want to just unplug and unwind. I don't want to have to do more thinking about me or like my issues, but I can see where like you need to be more intentional so that you can gain a better benefit of practicing self-care. Like that was just a random shower thought for
Well,
our
no,
listeners.
but literally, but break this down for a second. I think that's where, going back to my earlier point about why the boom of self-care to me is negative right now, is exactly that, because we've combined like some me time or some self-indulgence with this idea of self-care. Wait, but self-care is, these things that make me feel good. And
Yeah,
I mean, we've read the definition by the APA. Like that's not a part of this.
right.
Me time is a part of self-care, as is, things you enjoy, etc. But it's also a lot of hard work. And
Yeah.
it's a practice. It's a tool for your mental well-being.
Yeah. And I think there's a way to balance both so long as there's mindful intention in performing self-care. Like that's what I'm hearing from you. So if taking time to do your nails, gaming, or shopping makes you feel really good, it can be considered a small fraction of self-care if done in conjunction with the hard work that is not instantly gratifying and that intentionality of what you're doing under the name of self-care. Like, yeah, that I can see where you can find a balance between the two.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not only guilty of self-indulgence, self-care mix-up, but also the self-care Sunday idea, in which you're like, set apart a day that you are going to do all of your self-care things. And my therapist canceled that real fast on me. So, I really had to understand that, if you're constantly just pushing it off to this one day and you're going to do all these things one day, that's not sustainable. And it's most likely not going to happen. I know personally and professionally, I have gone through an awakening of sorts in terms of understanding true self-care. I've been guilty of overindulging and looking for an immediate emotional fix under the disguise or conviction of like self-care. I earned it. Treat yourself. I mean, let's be real. Immediate gratification of retail therapy will always look more appealing than the long-term investment of me taking out my journal and writing my feelings out. Like, just facts. One of the things in my own therapy I've had to face when examining my self-care or lack thereof was self-worth, and really coming to terms with the fact that I didn't feel worthy enough to invest in myself, which is hard to admit, because I think we all want to believe that, we love ourselves and we think that, but we don't talk about self-worth a lot. And you have to get to the point where you feel worthy enough to take time for you. Because the bottom line is self-care is self-love in action.
Yeah. Yeah. Self-worth is a hard one for me though. And like, I know we tend to look externally for a lot of our validations, and I guess, well, yeah, validations. So for me, I know I suffer from that. Like, so for example, going to the gym, it's one of my favorite forms of self-care and self-love because I can practice both. And I do practice both when I'm there, but that's a small portion of my day. Because so when I go and I look in the mirror, I have some of the most positive thoughts about myself because I think like, damn girl, look how strong you are. Look at those muscles. Like I get all excited. And especially like if my weight's increase, from the last week, I'm like, oh, like they are building. Like this is awesome. And then depending on the workout, I also leave feeling mentally fortified, or experiencing a catharsis. Cause, again, if my workout is a little harder that day, just that release is so uplifting for me. But, talking about immediate gratification, And again, logically, I know that like miracles don't happen overnight, but like sometimes when I step on the scale and I don't see movement or I see movement in the wrong way, and if I am weighing myself on like a more stressful day or morning, I am way more susceptible to putting something in my body that counteracts that hard work and admiration because I'm trying to soothe my stress or emotions through food. And like that's a indulgent behavior. I'm not saying I like sit through a whole entire box of Oreos or like package or whatever, and as
I
delicious
do.
as that sounds. I know, I'm like, as delicious as it sounds because the pumpkin ones are coming out or all the like fall ones, and I'm about to visit the US and I'm like, oh, the land of Oreo options. Like, but no, I can't do it. um, but I know I definitely need to flex those mental muscles when it comes to mindfulness and intention, especially when it comes to my physical practice with like working out, because I do see those results. I just don't see the results on the scale. So it's hard for me to be like, like nothing's changing. And it's this self-defeating, mindset.
But I think that's exactly why there are those 8 areas of self-care. So what I hear you saying is like
Yeah.
you check off the box maybe for physical self-care.
Right.
However, what I think you maybe need to focus on then would be that emotional aspect of
Yes.
self-care. And that's, combating those thoughts and what is happening that takes the act of going to the gym and, in a different area, in a different light makes it negative. And so I think that's
Right.
exactly like what the power of like a self-care practice where you actually know what areas you need to address becomes powerful. Okay, we have hit on 2 barriers to creating a practice of self-care and some misunderstandings of self-care and low self-worth. So now I want to pivot and address some of the barriers I think are the most common ones I see from my clients, my friends, my family, my wife, and let's be real, myself. The notion of I don't have enough time or feeling guilty for any time that you take for yourself.
Yeah. And these last few years have really shown me, money's nice. Don't get me wrong. Money can definitely make life easier, but time, I would argue, is such like a much more valuable commodity. And how I choose to spend my time has become way more of an intentful like practice. I'm not perfect at it, but I've definitely become more aware of it and like making sure I set those boundaries for myself. But it wasn't always that easy, so I get it. Like days can slip away from us, especially when we are stretched in many directions. So yeah, I can see how intentionally finding time for yourself can slip away in those precious minutes.
Great leaders aren't born, they're made. So who made you a great leader? If you're like most of us, you're trying to figure it out along the way. And you may be wondering if you're doing it right. Well, wonder no more. Cabana has worked with globally recognized coaches and tenured health system leaders to create the Balanced Leader Program, a one-on-one coaching program tailored for busy workers just like you. Learn more at www.mycabana.health/coaching.
And I'm about to do a hot take right here. So everybody lean in, come for me in the comments if you must. But here's the thing. You make time for what you want to make time for.
Yeah.
Period. And self-care is hard work. You have to be intentional. You have to prioritize it. You have to make the hard decisions every single day.
Mm-hmm.
In order to do that, you need to have the self-commitment, awareness, and accountability to ask yourself those difficult things. Picture it. Hard day at work, physically, emotionally, mentally, all the things. Is self-care letting yourself watch one more episode and treating yourself to a brownie? Or is it learning that you have to turn off Netflix and get to bed a little earlier because your body needs more time to recover?
Yeah. Yeah. Screen time, I used to have such a great bedtime routine, but I let that slip because yeah, screen time has definitely, I've done the doom scrolling. So logically turning off Netflix and starting my bedtime routine is better, but it is so hard to tune out and turn off. So that's, I need to undo the bad habit that I've created for myself at bedtime.
I mean, I actually, I think wrote in our episode, like notes we do before each one, that I want to do an episode on like morning and night routines and the importance of them. Anyway, but mental health is a lifestyle, and self-care is just one of those habits in creating that lifestyle. Because genuine self-care often involves that consistent, constructive practice that contributes to that long-term balance, contentment, and health. It's investing in yourself in a sustainable way.
Totally. I mean, I can see that a lot more clearly now. So, like, to sum it up, self-care is a habit. Self-care doesn't have to be this huge change or big production, because I think, a series of small lifestyle habits or tweaks consistently done is probably going to have a bigger impact over saving just one day to focus on ourselves. Because let's be real too, like, you save that Sunday, or whatever, one day a week where like, this is the only day I'm practicing self-care. So you want to suffer 6 other days and just go at life raw? Like, I don't think so. No, I really like that we did this episode, just finding time each day to practice, or at least start a new practice at better self-care. But at the same time, change is difficult. So giving ourselves grace and patience at self-care, especially during certain periods of our lives, during those times, you might need an avoidance or distraction if you're not ready to handle what has been put on your plate. Or if you don't have the decision just yet that needs to be made, like, by all means, put it off to the side to push through, but come back to it. And other times, maybe you do need to tune into Netflix, or mindless entertainment, to maybe like brainstorm on a work thing, or respond to something that is a little urgent that's going on at work. The key thought here, though, is having that awareness and that recognition so that you can return to your baseline of a healthy balance.
Yes, yes, yes. A million times yes.
I'm already feeling the daunting feeling of like, even tweaking a self-care plan practice. Like, I thought I had a pretty good idea. I thought I was pretty conscious, each day, like maybe not consistently at the same time, but throughout my day, I'm like, what am I doing for myself? What can I do to find my balance? But today's chat, like, is a reminder that we all have room for improvement, and that's okay with me.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I was thinking this morning as I was finishing up our script, and I had skipped my morning journaling time to get the bottom of the script, out to you. And I was just like, gosh, isn't this like ironic? So I think to your point of just always improving, it's a lot of work to get your self-care practice into a maintenance mode. To help, our listeners, we've gone ahead and linked some great tools into our show notes, so that you can put some thought and work your way to a maintenance mode, because it's not going to happen overnight. But until you are there, here is an easy self-care tool you can start implementing today that will set you up for success as you build your plan, because you're going to need to do this. So easy for today, but when you get that plan going, don't forget about this tool. So we're talking structured time. Essentially, what you want to do is take your calendar, digital or paper planner, and if you don't have one, you can print out one of our daily sheets that I also linked in the notes for you. And what you want to do to start is do a daily start time and a daily cutoff time. Think of it as your hours of operation or your hours to get shit done. Now, for me, my standard operating hours are from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. Those are the hours in which I can do. So that means I get up at 5:30 to do my morning routine. and I start my nightly routine at 9 p.m. So to give you an idea of like what you're planning and how you're breaking this down. So first, you go ahead and you block time for all the responsibilities you have in that day. And when I say responsibilities, I'm talking about meetings, kids' games, doctor's appointments, basically anything that is non-negotiable in terms of time. You can't move something from 1 to 2. It doesn't have that flexibility. Be sure when you are doing these, you are including transition times from one responsibility to the next or any travel time unneeded, because you don't want to overbook yourself during this structured time. For me, I get really detailed and I do like cooking dinner, walk for the family, because I am victim, or maybe I am guilty of putting so much in my calendar without those transition times, and then essentially beating myself up when 9 o'clock comes and I still have things that I could have never realistically gotten done. So I have made sure to like put a very detailed list. So if you're like me, the more detailed, the better. Okay, from there, go ahead and put a block for all administrative / like mundane tasks. When I say administrative, I mean the admin of your life, the admin of your job. You want to do your emails, you're sending out calendar invites, calling the pharmacy, things that don't take a lot of mental energy or they don't take too long, but they're annoying as hell to get done during the day. So you want to make sure you have a block of time to do that. From there, you block out time for any must-do tasks. So you go ahead, you take your to-do list and you decide based on the time you have left, what are your must-do tasks for today? And you put a block on the calendar for each of those must-do tasks. And you do that as must-do tasks like by projecting the time. So I gave myself an hour to script a podcast because I think it will probably take me an hour. So you want to make sure you're also rounding up again, so you're not getting to the end of the day and feeling like, gosh, I didn't get something done. Now, the hard part, you review the day and you put at least 5 minutes for self-care onto that schedule. If you don't see a clear 5 minutes to get that in, you have to go ahead and in reverse order, adjust the plan so that you do. So that might mean first you look at, okay, well, what of the must-do tasks can I take off today and move to tomorrow? And if there's nothing there, you go up another level. How can I chip into my administrative or mundane task block? And the way structured time works or why it's effective is because you commit to ensuring that the only thing on this calendar that you cannot move is that 5-minute block. You have to have it every single day. And once you block it into your schedule, it can't be moved. So this helps you hold yourself accountable and value the importance of you above all of the other things you're going to have during the day. I think just to be clear too, with that 5 minutes, get crazy, please. I'd love to see maybe an hour broken up, but in the beginning, it can seem hard. So just 5 minutes and then setting an intentional activity during those 5 minutes, you're going to see a world of difference.
I like this idea of scheduling. And I'm glad you mentioned that about being able to, once it's consistent, seeing where you can squeeze more time into the day for you. Like it almost makes it like an incentive, so that you can start small, let's see, how that can improve or impact your life, hopefully for the better. And it almost is like, how much more time can I give myself? Like, I love that because it really puts you in that like self-prioritization mindset. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And it'll just, at the very least, make you examine your day and maybe even organize your day a little bit better to see where you can fit it in. So I really like that idea of scheduling it.
Look, I want to be clear. There is no shortage of advice when it comes to self-care. So I just want to leave you with this. Take away the avoidance of self-indulgence and remember that there is no right way to practice self-care as long as you are committing to your own practice. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review. We absolutely love hearing from you guys. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode of You're Always Fine. Until then, mind your health. Seriously, you're fine. You're fine because you have the power to access your place of peace anytime you need it. However, if you get stuck, we're right at the palm of your hand to help. Check out our show notes
for this week's source list, recommended content, and Cabana live group schedule. We'll catch you next week for a brand new episode of You're Always Fine.
The team at Cabana has found your reset button. The answer? Cabana Pods, acoustic soundproof booths with immersive micro vacations proven to boost your mood in just 5 minutes. To learn more about Cabana Pods, visit www.evenhealth.com/pods.